Welcome to the Data Pour. I'm Luke Little. We are in Myers Park, Charlotte, North Carolina at the People's Market, and we are about to have a drink with James Barney. Hey, what's going on?
Nice to see you.
Let's get a drink.
Sounds good.
Welcome to the Data Pour, James.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm James Barney. I've been a part of big enterprises, their tech initiatives for basically 12 years now. I currently, work for a really big insurance company, helping lead their AI initiatives, and it's a really exciting time where the world's moving really quick, and everybody wants answers, and everybody is looking for, that next big thing, and that's kind of my role, is to evaluate the big things, or what people are claiming are the big things, and see what sticks.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you're here. I've known you for a long time, and you're always the person I go to with my AI questions.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, when was it what year was it when you came to invest to help us with the data team?
2019.
2019. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. We were working on a bunch of it was like reporting stuff for basically people making trades that are illegal or whatever. And our team's job was to press the button and give the government the various, here's the trades that they made, and then they would go and do whatever the government does with that. And
the blotters. Well, and we built the Kafka cluster. That was one of the first things that I worked on.
It was before Kafka had
MSK,
and before client certificate authentication and stuff like that. And we showed it to people, and we were like, why do we need that? And we're like, oh no. If you have to ask that, what have we done?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then 2 months later, AWS came out with MSK, and we were like, ah.
Yeah, because
really cool.
I think the first iteration of that, I built, using CloudFormation, I built a bunch of EC2 instances that were running.
It would scale up and down. Yeah.
It was terrible.
It would go and get a certificate from, I think this was before Secrets Manager, so it was from a protected bucket and all this crazy stuff. It's so much more mature now, thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we started working on the infrastructure for a lot of Spring Boot applications that would read from Kafka. And that was a whole nother exciting journey.
Jeez, how far we've come, everything's serverless, Docker. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to think that even today, right, Kafka basically is the backbone of a lot of super high throughput applications in a very invisible kind of way that most people obviously have no idea what Kafka is.
Yeah.
And then when there's I can't help but notice when I place an order somewhere and processing, accepted, sent, it's that's a Kafka workflow right there. I know it. So it's really cool to kind of get that. That's what I really like about technology. It's what I like about I've done my whole career is building technology that's sort of invisible to the customer, but knowing deeply how it works sort of from end to end, and sort of making the magic happen. And that's why I think AI is really great, because literally everyone, well, a third of the planet now has used ChatGPT or something like that, some crazy stat. And everyone kind of knows what AI is. They have this sort of innate experience. They understand where it's really coming from and how it interacts with them. And so it's much more different from big data, for example, or IoT or something like that, right? Where people just didn't really, nobody knows what a database is. Nobody knows what Kafka is, or why you'd want to stream data or not. And so in working in AI, it's a lot more fun these days, just because I can It can literally talk to probably anyone on the street and kind of explain how it could impact their lives, and they get it, and it's compelling, and they're like, okay, that's pretty cool.
This is absolutely true. Absolutely. It does seem that AI is touching everyone simultaneously in many different ways, but the average person knows what generative AI is, and
Yeah.
that's wild.
It's absolutely insane that it's this thing that's sort of popped up out of nowhere over the last 2-3 years, depending on who you ask, and now everyone has probably 4 apps on their phone that all do the same thing, that all fundamentally work off of like the transformer algorithm that was published, transformer and attention algorithm that was published by way back when.
Yeah.
Attention is all you need. It's like, man, it's just taken off so fast, and it's pretty crazy. But I still I'm not fully convinced by the full diffusion model for like generating images. That seems like total magic, where you go from like static to an image. Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I know how it works, like technically.
yeah,
I don't believe it.
it's at least it's simpler than quantum tunneling.
That's true. Yeah.
On that note of quantum tunneling, you being someone with a physics background, moving to data,
Yeah.
how did that happen?
Kind of by accident. I was, I wouldn't call myself a star student. I was a good student in physics. But eventually, I graduated, and there was just a college career fair, and I walked up to like a Lowe's booth, and for some reason there was literally no one talking to Lowe's, like one of the largest retailers in the U.S. And I was like, why are you guys at a tech fair? And they're like, because we have technology. And that's kind of like the same thing with physics. It's like, okay, physics is all about numbers and math and relating. You throw a ball that way, it bounces back at you. You have to describe that with math. When you get to a certain scale, doing the math by hand obviously gets really annoying. And so what ends up happening is you use computers, obviously, to process gobs of data, right? It could be like hydrodynamic data, right, where there is no solution. You have to literally compute everything. Or even simulations, right? Monte Carlo simulations for various outcomes in the stock market, right? Like all of these things come from physics. And so when you like progress in the undergrad in your physics journey, eventually they're like, remember all those whiteboards? Get them out of here. Like they plop you down in front of a computer, they force you to learn C++, and you're like, wow, this is miserable. But what I liked was how you could actually tell a computer to do something for you, which obviously you can't tell a whiteboard to do things for you. There's like some sort of a magic around that really sort of sparked this joy about being able to explore things, being able to evaluate how like systems interact with each other. That really excited me. And so it was my junior year. I picked up computer science. They put us through that C++ class because basically every lab runs off of C++. And I was like, I like computers, not so much the C++ stuff. What else we got? And there's a Python introductory class in the computer science department. And that was basically what I went with. I was like, okay, it's too late for me to switch majors, but I can get a minor. So I'm just going to kind of dive in because like all the departments basically overlapped. So I went with it. So I got into the tech fair, and basically that was it. I was technically in the computer science program, so I could go to that tech fair. I could talk to Lowe's. They said, hey, we're not just selling hammers, we also do data. Have you ever heard of big data? I was like, no, but it sounds bigger than small data. And they're like, he's the guy. He gets it. And this was back when Hadoop was kind of just literally being invented. Like V0 dot whatever of Hadoop was one of my first projects at Lowe's, which is just kind of crazy to think about. It took us 6 months to stand up this is before the cloud. Weird. To stand up the infrastructure for the Hadoop cluster. And then like AWS came out with EMR, and what took us 6 months took us 15 minutes in AWS. And I was like, whoa, that's not a long-term like situation for me. And so that's really how I kind of got in here. That's kind of how I started doing cloud stuff. And again, going back to the sort of making the magic of technology happen for consumers, right? In big enterprises, when there is this sort of revolutionary technology like the cloud or like AI, there is this sort of natural inclination for the enterprise and for every team in the enterprise to try to be that champion or like the flag bearer for that technology, which is great because you get a lot of ideas. But what ends up happening is for it to actually scale, to go from a US based team to a team in New Zealand or a team in Shanghai or something like that, is you need to have these core competencies, these core frameworks, so that everyone's kind of speaking the same language, so you don't end up reinventing risk frameworks or audit frameworks or things like that, right? Like if everyone's all speaking the same language with the same technology, you can actually build things a lot faster. Yeah. Even though there are some compromises, right? Like you can't go and take the latest and greatest framework off of GitHub and apply it immediately, right? There takes some work. And so that's sort of the magic of technology in my role right now is like the customer is not people out in the world. It's the actual teams within the enterprise that are building their tools. Like they don't necessarily know how to start with AI, and so my role is okay. Assuming you know how to open a file on your computer, right? How do you then run a basic prompt to an LLM? Okay, once you've prompted the LLM, how do you chain those together? Once you've chained them together, how do you create these graphs that can work off of complicated workflows? And it's this sort of like step-by-step learning that allows people to really understand and then ultimately build the magical things for the customers that actually make a difference.
So do you think that your experience developing more robust cloud platforms in which the customer was, engineers developing things within large financial institutions, do you think that those same patterns lend itself to enabling end users of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it is always the person in the process that is the hard part, right? And I mean that in the best way possible, because we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different foundations of what we've learned, right? Not everyone has a computer science major or minor or anything. A lot of people were, they came from finance. They fiddled around with Excel for 5 years. They figured out macros, and then they're like, there's got to be a better way. And it's like, there is. It's called Python, right? And that's kind of how and now they're like this developer that has this finance background, and now they're being told by their senior director to like learn the AIs, quote unquote. And like, that's where people start. And so what you have to do is, it doesn't matter what the technology is, right? You have to start from the basics, give them working code that they can literally copy and paste. And it sounds silly, or like, back in the day, copying and pasting code from Stack Overflow. Like I have one of those Control-V, Control-C keyboards at home from Stack Overflow that was made as a joke because like that's what people would do.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Ironically, A, that's not what like the co-pilots are doing. But now B, if you give people a known working situation or a known working configuration, they're able to take that and then add just one line, right? If they can add one line and it still runs, they've made progress. They've made it their own, and they can start sort of interacting and understanding how these systems work. And so it doesn't matter if it's AI, it doesn't matter if it's code or cloud with Terraform or CloudFormation or whatever. The important part is just getting people, no matter where they've started in their careers, to a place where what they're trying to do and the problem that they're trying to solve, they can see it on the roadmap, and it's your job to sort of, connect the points on that map to them.
So before we jump to the next set of questions, we're at People's Market here in Myers Park. It's a beautiful place. What are you drinking?
This is OMB Copper. It is one of the, wow. It is one of the first beers here in Charlotte from Old Mecklenburg Brewery. They're like this traditional German brewery place that we love. They just do like 4 ingredients in all their beers: water, malt, barley, and hops, and like that's it, which is really cool. And so I probably messed one of those up. The important part is they use 4 ingredients, basically it's just a really pure application of traditional techniques. It's really good, really good, internationally recognized beer.
I am a huge fan of OMB myself.
Yeah.
This is the Sycamore Mountain View?
Candy.
Mountain Candy,
Yeah.
yes. So I haven't had this one before, so it's really good.
It's good. I actually had that at my wedding, and I didn't tell people the ABV. Well, rather, it wasn't my fault. Put it that way, right? It was a good time.
What is the ABV?
It's like 7.8, maybe 7.3,
Okay.
something like that. It works. It increases the gears. It gets
Nice,
people moving.
nice. We both serve large financial institutions, and we have for a long time. Now I do it as a consultant. So what do you think are the pillars of data governance for artificial intelligence?
I mean, I don't think they've really changed much from, this is kind of the advantage that anyone in big data or who has worked in big data has, is like, it's the exact same stuff, right? If you're, the simplest piece of data is a column of data. Well, the simplest collection of data is a column of data with a specific type, right? And if it's an integer and you've got 7.6 in there somewhere, like, your data's crap, right? And so like you can take that idea and basically extrapolate it out to all the columns. And obviously it sounds really easy for a single table, but when you have millions of tables, it gets really complicated. So like that's really the primary, I would say, tenet of data governance is make sure the data type in your column matches what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, define the rules. Like, understand what that's supposed to be. If your employee ID number can never be greater than 1 million, make sure it doesn't happen, right? Or, you know, if the balance can never be less than 0, enforce that in the database, right? Because eventually, when the AI actually connects to the API, and that could be through direct API access, or it could be through MCP, or if you're like fine-tuning models, right? Like that sort of discrepancy is going to cause issues. And so, but those issues were the same as the issues back in big data days when you were training traditional machine learning models, as they were just making, you know, Power BI reports or whatever, right? If you have a weird outlier, it's going to show up. Your SVP or whatever is going to ask you, hey, what's going on over here? And you're going to have to go and fix it. It's really annoying. And like, it's the same old, right? So that's kind of how I feel.
Do you think that it's interesting, isn't it, that it's the same people in the same march? We've come from calling things big data, data analytics, and this is the same people marching into this AI sphere.
I think it's mostly just the skill set and, you know, who owns the keys to the Ferrari, so to speak, right? Like, and that's kind of how it works. That's kind of how it worked with the cloud too, right? If you're the cloud admin, you get to play with the cool new cloud features, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of your job responsibility. And in my opinion, if you're not playing with the cool new features of your cloud provider as the cloud admin, you're kind of doing your organization disfavor or a disservice, because that's the whole reason why you're using the cloud provider, to build cool things that you wouldn't have the engineering capability to do so yourself. Or you might have it, but you don't want to spend your engineering on that, right? And so I think that's why it all rhymes, is just because I don't know. It's data, it's APIs, it's workflows, right? Like everything is ETL basically. Connecting all these multiple systems to one centralized system sounds. If I just said that, you could say that about pretty much anything. That was big data. That was IoT. It's kind of blockchain. It's also AI, right? You're connecting disparate systems to one central system so that it can create value. And I'm not mocking creating value. I mean, like literally creating value.
Creating real value.
And that's where I think what innovation really is being able to take these disparate data sources and connect them in novel ways that haven't been done before, either faster or more efficient than previously. Because, anyone can take a CSV dump of their customers and join it with, I don't know, demographics information or something like that once on their local laptop. If they're lucky, it doesn't crash Excel or something, right? But like to do it at scale 1,000 times a day or per customer, that's what the actual innovation is. And that's what all these technologies actually drive. And so it doesn't matter if it's big data doing that, right? You're clicking around on a website and you're generating events and they're, serving you ads based on that. That's big data. It could also be the same for AI, right? You're clicking around on a website and instead of you asking, typing into the search box like, a shiny new hammer, it would be able to understand based on what you've looked at previously that you're looking for hammers, if you will.
So just to pivot for a second, I know a lot of people who are younger, who are just entering this space, are very excited about artificial intelligence, and they're very excited about working in this field. They're also a lot of them are very scared, because what we do is changing, it's transforming. We're in a transformational phase of the market. What advice would you give to recent college graduates entering the IT field?
I've been asked about this a lot recently, and the thing I keep saying is like, learn how to find problems. But not even that, like understanding that there is a problem or identifying a problem that has not been identified before is a skill that many people are blind to. And a lot of times the new hires, obviously you have to balance it with being gracious and, whatever, understanding that you're part of a larger organization. Like understanding that or asking, hey, why do we do it this way when we could do X, Y, and Z thing, right? And, it may not always pan out that your great idea or whatever will work, but being able to identify the problem and suggest a solution is like a universal skill that will never go out of style, no matter how good AI gets, I promise. Because, if you leave your phone at home, you're not going to have AI, right? So you have to be able to find your way home. And so I think that's sort of the advice I'm giving. I don't necessarily know what that translates to in terms of like a degree. Obviously, I'm kind of skewed in terms of like foundational sciences, foundational math, things like that, because it gives you the underpinnings of basically how all this stuff works. And one reason why I like physics the most, or at least like looking back at it now, a lot of times the sort of problems that they had us solve on the tests were like totally absurd, right? Like imagine the classic is like you've got an airplane full of ping pong balls, right? How many ping pong balls are in there, and like what's the mass of the airplane after you add all those ping pong balls? It's like I have no idea. I have no idea, but the important part is that you're able to sort of take a core problem that exists today and then apply, like naturally extend almost to the absurd, right? And that's where the actual innovation lies, because it's not the first customer that you solve the problem for. It's not the 100th customer. It's the 1,000,000th customer or the 10,000,000th customer. That's where the real value is. And that's where these big systems like big data and AI and whatever comes next, that's where the actual change will come from, is the sort of application of an understood problem to the absurd, and building a system that can actually handle it. That's crazy. And these foundational sciences do that for us.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know that having a much different background than yours. I went to school for finance. I didn't even go to school for computer science. I went later, and I found myself asking you questions about math when it came time for me to pursue a master's in computer science. So it certainly is, especially if you want to break into artificial intelligence, it's so important that you understand things like matrices.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen like this meme floating around where it's like, I can't believe people are like, yeah, insert activity at the end, but like this is literally all the activity is, and it's like like the cross product rule of a matrix, like a 3x3 matrix with a single column, and it's like, well, actually, that's literally how everything in the real world works. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you, but every single one of those cars has an ECU that's doing matrix multiplication.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new. It's just this new application of that matrix algebra, which, oh, by the way, for everyone who thinks like, oh, math is boring and whatever, like matrix algebra was like invented 600 years ago or something crazy like that. Don't fact check me. But actually, just put like a little, it was actually invented right there. We went 600 years until like the actual applications of matrix algebra actually made sense, right? And I think that's sort of the exciting part about, I mean, you quipped about quantum tunneling and things like that, but these things are real. Like this stuff has actual application and actual, impact on our lives. Just because we're big humans walking around this world doesn't mean that quantum stuff doesn't actually matter to us. And so, I don't know. Soapbox off.
To add context to the quantum thing, I asked you quite some time ago how quantum tunneling works because I was working on quantum algorithms for a master's course, and you just said it does.
Yep.
Okay.
Accept
So
it and move on. That was what my professor said. He literally, there's like a couple of videos online where it's just like it's like Quantum 101 or whatever, and you walk in and the professor says, good news, we're going to learn about quantum mechanics today. The bad news is you're going to leave just as confused. And that's if I've done my job. So,
yes.
like, it's this weird thing. Nobody really understands it. There's no real, you can put as many cats as you want into the box, but at the end of the day, you still don't know if it's dead or alive. So.
That's exactly. We talked about how everybody knows about generative AI now.
Yeah.
Everybody's using ChatGPT. Everybody's using Claude,
Yep.
Perplexity, Grok, Gemini. All of these, but I don't think anybody actually really understands, like the general person doesn't really understand what's going on in the background.
Yeah.
They don't understand where the data is that these large language models access. They don't understand the context that goes into these prompts.
Yep.
And how much value there is. And we as stewards of artificial intelligence for financial institutions, we often build around. We build value by adding that to that context.
Yeah.
There is a lot of examples of this, and I think that the world is kind of deaf to all the latest innovations in contextual awareness.
Yeah.
For instance, we talk about you and I talk about location awareness.
Yeah.
With Camino AI.
Yeah.
Which is very exciting.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Camino AI is this sort of side project that I've been working on, and it's addressing a blind spot that basically all AI models have, and that is the physical relationship between 2 points on the planet. And that sounds sort of trivial and weird. You'd be like, well, why doesn't it ingested all of the books ever written? Why doesn't it know about the Earth? And the reality is it does. It knows about Charlotte, North Carolina. It knows about People's Market. It knows about OMB brewing. But that's just because those places have websites or Wikipedia entries or something like that, right? If I ask it, hey, how do I get to OMB from the People's Market? It it will likely stitch together something, and you can try this. It'll stitch something together, and it'll say you're about a 10 to 20 minute drive to OMB from the People's Market here in Charlotte, which is great. Like, is it wrong? No. But is it right? Also no, right? Like, if I could give people directions and have a 50% variance on my directions, I would not be a very good direction giver, right? And so that's why we have these traditional apps like Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever. But the problem is, and they've actually recently changed this to incorporate it, they don't actually use the maps, right? Like, you can't just walk straight line to OMB over there because there's this pesky building in the way, right? Like, you have to use the road, you have to walk on the sidewalks, and you can get there. And so that's what Camino AI is kind of getting towards. It's not built for humans. It's not built for, you're not going to like go to it and type in, get your, directions. Your AI agent is, though, right? Because when you're doing whatever it is you do for the enterprise, and your particular problem that has arrived on your desk requires location intelligence, and you ask your co-pilot, hey, how do I get to OMB from work? Pretty good idea. Like, that would be a thing that it would make up, it would hallucinate, it would come up with something just to make it, right? Its objective is to give you an answer. And so with Camino AI, what it does is it gives you, it taps into the actual like geographic and like geodata points on Earth, which have been mapped over the last like 25 years or so in like great detail, to not only give routes to your AI agent, but also like time estimates for walking, biking, or driving. It gives context. So like, this area is apparently a little busy at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But like, if you just ask that to AI, it would have no idea, right? Because it doesn't have that location data. And by building these various simple tools, like asking, hey, show me all the breweries in an area, or find me OMB, right? Those are two different tools, a search and a query. You can then stitch together these broader capabilities, like tell me about breweries around OMB, because there are many other ones. Or tell me the route to get there, right? That's another tool. Or tell me, like, make a journey for me that goes from each brewery in South End here in Charlotte within 5 hours. That'd be aggressive, but that's what it could do. And that's the sort of thing that is missing from AI copilots today, is they can provide point in space understanding, but they have no real knowledge of like how these places interact, what the relationship is, how far it is, what roads you need to take, things like that, things that matter for like the real world. It's kind of crazy. Our AI agents exist in this digital world that we've created for them. They have literally no idea about the physical world that we exist in. And so that's what Camino is trying to solve for. It's like, let's give them a way to tap into the physical world and actually understand the problems that we have walking to go get a beer.
Yeah, I think this represents a great example of the opportunities that nobody really pays attention to in artificial intelligence today, because I don't think a lot of people understand how LLMs work.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people understand how the value proposition of providing information to LLMs that they can retrieve, that they can incorporate into the results.
Yep.
And this is a fantastic example.
Yeah, it's not the right way to think about it, but it's a way to think about it. Is like every interaction with an LLM or a copilot, for example, the raw LLM itself is the single layer of a cake, so to speak, and each additional point of data that you give it or integration that you give it makes the cake bigger, right? And the bigger the cake, the better the cake, universally, right? I think Newton, that was one of Newton's laws. And so what enterprises run into is like, your executive is super used to using ChatGPT to like do cool things, and they're like, why can't I just use this? It's because the enterprises don't necessarily, like the enterprise applications don't necessarily, like, it's not like you can just use ChatGPT, the web product, which is a very tall cake, the enterprises have access to these single layer cakes, which are kind of lame. They're kind of one-trick ponies. And that's all we really have access to. If you want to make it something that's nice, you have to add those layers yourselves. Yeah. So what we're seeing people do, and what the first one was like RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generation. Basically, you find a document, put it on top of the layer, and what do you know? As included with that prompt that you send is this document, and the LLM is able to refer to it because it's now able to like see, oh, you're talking about this, so I'm going to provide this answer. And then from there, you can add on other APIs, right? And this is kind of where MCP servers come in, or like external tools, or just generic APIs. The ability to sort of, hey, I'm customer ABC, what's my order history, right? That's another layer on top of the cake where like the LLM would be able to see all the orders that I've made and say, okay, based on this, you might want to return this last thing that you just bought, for example.
Absolutely.
And then like you can just keep going. You can just keep adding these layers, and that's what kind of Camino is aiming to be. It's a layer. Does it make sense for every prompt of yours to use this Camino layer? No. But if you don't have it and you need it, it's like talking about your business processes without having your actual business processes to the LLM. It'll make stuff up, and it'll be really convincing, and you'll think that OMB is 20 minutes that way, but really, it's over there.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why it's important.
In terms of MCP, how do you explain this to executives? Because what I've found is that, well, everybody knows about generative AI. When we start digging deeper, and I've kind of alluded to this before, nobody really understands how LLMs work. Yep. They don't know what MCP is.
They shouldn't have to. Yeah.
Oh, they shouldn't have to. But I mean, if we're looking 5 years in the future, we should expect more and more MCP solutions to power LLMs, to empower prompts.
Yeah, again, going back to the cake metaphor, because why not? Right, it's this extra capability that is separate, right? Just like you can have a vanilla cake on top, chocolate on, or vanilla on the bottom and chocolate on top, right? It's two different things. It brings a different, literally, flavor to the solution at hand. That's kind of what's nice about MCP is like you can swap out the vanilla layer, which could be the foundational model, and you can swap in a strawberry layer. I don't know, right? But you can keep the tools and the access the same, right? It's kind of like I don't know. It's like if you have a plumber come to your house, right? Like they have a generic set of tools that they show up with, a wrench, solder, pipes, things like that, right? To be able to fix whatever issues is ailing your plumbing. It doesn't matter if it's plumber A or plumber B that shows up. They either one would show up with the same tools. They might have different strategies, right? They might have different ways of approaching a problem, of troubleshooting, whatever. And that's the difference between the foundational model. But at the end of the day, if there's a wrench MCP, the foundational model is going to use that wrench MCP to turn the bolt. And that's kind of what wrenches do, right? And that's the purpose of MCPs. And that's the metaphor that I use for like executives, because I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think executives probably have, homes that they live in that occasionally have plumbing issues. So like it really connects with them. And it works. It works to explain it, and it's a very generalized pattern that makes sense.
I certainly hope to see more context awareness. I think that there certainly is a growing. I certainly hope to see more context awareness. I know there's a growing market around this, and this is the reason why LangChain called out your blog.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The reason why they drew attention to that is because this is a prime example of how businesses can draw value from artificial intelligence that it goes above and beyond just using Claude to figure out what you should put in Excel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like if you want to have a holistic experience, right? we have five senses as humans, right? Each of those five senses kind of collaborate, if you will, to build our reality. In the same way, all these different connections and all this different context which we can give our LLMs helps build their reality, right? And so that's where frameworks like LangChain can really help, because the nitty-gritty details of integrating these frameworks these data points can be really annoying, right?
Yeah.
But even then, it's just stuff that you shouldn't necessarily have to repeat, right? Like if you're not a data integration expert, you shouldn't necessarily be writing a data integration piece of software, right? And that's what frameworks that LangChain has built and that people are kind of extending now allow you to do. Is you just take the thing off the shelf, you plug it into these standard, patterns, and what do you know? Now you're talking to an MCP server that you didn't even know about 10 minutes ago, right? And I think that's really cool. It's sort of opening up this really interesting economy of data and APIs, which is super interesting. There's this protocol called like 402 or X402 from Coinbase. There's a couple protocols coming out of Google and like the Linux Foundation around agent-to-agent protocol. That's really exciting, where in the future, like I can see me, James, giving my agent like a wallet with my credit card or equivalent, and basically saying like, I have this problem, go solve it. And the AI will simply say to the world, hello, I have a problem, can anyone solve this? And it's like, oh, you're trying to route him to OMB. Yeah, come on over to the Camino API, give us 2 cents, drop the coin in, so to speak, and we'll dispense the API call, and we'll tell you, and you're human, how to solve that problem, right? Like, it's this sort of weird thing where I didn't even know about the data service that existed, but my AI agent was able to find it and actually go and solve the problem on my behalf. And I think that's the sort of economy that we're going to, right? There's this, like, everybody's got problems. We got 99 problems. And I think AI is going to help us solve each one of them, right? And so, like, that's where, I don't know. I'm super excited for the future. I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, me too. I am. I'm super excited. I think it's going to be such a fascinating. It's a bit daunting. It's a bit daunting to think about what the next 10 years are going to look like. Here's an idea for a question. What sci-fi story do you think we're headed toward?
I think it's 2001: Space Odyssey. Sans the obelisk or whatever it is. What is it? The monolith.
No monolith?
I don't think there's monolith out there on Europa, but I mean,
Maybe.
we can put one out there. We could.
Yeah, we could. We could try it. I'll do it.
No, that'd be really expensive. Let's not do that. I think we're kind of seeing it today with like medical and like legal and financial advice, right? They've kind of walked it back, and the model providers, I mean, it seems to be this sort of like gray area where we're not sure where AI is allowed to help, right? And so I don't think I can do that, Dave, right? Like, that's where I think 2001: Space Odyssey, like, that's AI in that world, right? And I think there's this sort of gray area of the spectrum where the AI will sort of exist, and depending on who you go with, it'll be able to do certain things. And it'll be up to the risk tolerance of the consumer or the enterprise or whatever, if they want to open the pod bay doors, right? Like, does it make sense for your procurement team to be able to like send checks via AI? Maybe, right? It might make sense for one enterprise. It might not make sense for another enterprise, right? So like, I really see this sort of guardrail exploration of AI, like, where's the box, define the sandbox, let the AI play around in it. And every now and then we'll toss in a new tool or a new shovel, and the AI can make a cool new sandcastle. But there's this sort of defined area that it can't go out of. That's where I think we're heading, and that's why I think it's kind of 2001 Space Odyssey vibe, without all the bad stuff, if I may.
It's wild that we've gotten through the entire episode without drinking a single drink.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, thank you for being here, James.
Appreciate it.
It's always fun catching up. And until next time, let's toast the knowledge and connection, one episode at a time.
Cheers.